So take a good hard look at yourself, Netanyahu, because you are the biggest obstacle to peace in the Middle East, bar none. There's no competition at this point.
This meeting between Trump and Netanyahu is closed to the press for now. Could change, as always, with this president. But two sources tell ABC News that Netanyahu will personally present the latest Israeli intelligence to the president on Iran's efforts to rebuild its ballistic missile program and nuclear program.
This is the Israeli government pressing their case that not only should that nuclear program be the focus of the talks, but also there should be other red lines which the US should extract demands from the Iranians on, namely the ballistic missile program that Israel says Iran has already started to rebuild.
Not only is Israel's intelligence for the United States so worthless that it's not worth the paper it's printed on, Iran's missile capabilities are not of importance to the United States. They can't reach the United States. Iran has no interest in actually harming us. And so I just want to understand, why do we care about what Netanyahu or the Israelis have to say about Iran at all? And that's not just me saying it. Here is mega Zionist Robert Greenway from the Heritage Foundation. If you're unfamiliar with him, he's one of the ghouls who negotiated the Abraham Accords in order to normalize Israel's depravity with Arab countries. Here's what he has to say about Iran's missile capabilities.
And certainly Iran does not have the capacity to adequately threaten the United States, but it's not completely defenseless. And I think that's why additional assets may be required and may be on their way into the theater. Midnight Hammer took the nuclear program off the table, so the ballistic missile program is all that they've got left. And that, of course, remains a target that both Israel and the United States, and frankly, the region should be interested in eliminating. And once that happens, Iran is no longer the principal threat in the region, and we're in a new Middle East. And I think that's the horizon that both the president and the prime minister are steering towards.
So Iran's missiles are not a threat to the United States, but as you just heard the gentleman say, Iran has defense capabilities, and we should be concerned about that. Why? Why would we be so concerned about that we would risk the lives of our soldiers and use our resources to engage in war with Iran? Now, look, we're not dumb, obviously, right? We know what's going on here. We know that war with Iran would happen at the behest of Israel. That's the whole point here. That is the reason why Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who was supposed to meet with Trump next week, begged to have his meeting moved up so he could meet with Trump today. And that's what happened this morning. He did meet with Trump. I am assuming to goad him into fighting a war on Israel's behalf. And since Trump is Israel's bitch, much like previous presidents, Democrats and Republicans, he'll probably give Bibi what he wants. Now, nonetheless, the prime minister is back in town. And here is what I think is really interesting here. So, according to the Jerusalem Post, they write, quote, "I will present Trump with principles for negotiations with Iran that are important, not only to Israel, but to everyone who wants peace and security," Netanyahu said, while boarding Wing of Zion, Israel's state aircraft. In my opinion, these are important principles for everyone who wants peace and security in the Middle East. Peace and security in the Middle East would require Israel to be put in its place. Israel is the biggest threat to not just peace in the Middle East, but peace on this planet. So take a good hard look at yourself, Netanyahu, because you are the biggest obstacle to peace in the Middle East, bar none. There's no competition at this point. Now, ahead of Netanyahu's visit, Trump bragged about sending more US military capabilities to the region. Take a look at that.
We have a massive flotilla right now going over to Iran. We'll see what happens. I think they want to make a deal. I think they'd be foolish if they didn't. I would say that I'd rather make a deal. It's got to be a good deal. No nuclear weapons, no missiles, no this, no that, all the different things that you want.
So in other words, Trump is saying that he intends to send a second carrier strike group to the Middle East in preparation for war with Iran. And regardless of what Barak Ravid might have to say over at Axios, he wants us all to believe that there's daylight between Trump and Netanyahu. That's actually not the case at all. Here is more reporting from the Jerusalem Post. There are no significant gaps between Israel and the United States on negotiations with Iran. US Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, told the Jerusalem Post at Ben Gurion Airport before the Tuesday departure, meaning before Netanyahu left Israel on Tuesday to come persuade Trump to spill American blood and use American treasure on behalf of Israel. So that's the reality of the situation. Now, what do I mean when I say there's no daylight between the two? Trump likes to talk out of both sides of his mouth. It's the most annoying thing in the world, but I think the best way to handle that is, out of the two things he's saying, which one is worse? That's the one he actually means. And so when he starts, his tough talk about how he's gonna crush Iran, that's what he actually means. Now, remember, this all started with the Israelis pretending like they were very worried about their safety, very scared about Iran potentially building nuclear weapons. Obama secures the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal, to ensure that Iran is not building nuclear weapons. Trump comes in 2018, rips it up, and suddenly we're hearing about the Israelis and how they want to move the goalposts. It's not just about nuclear war anymore that they're worried about. Now they're worried about missiles. Now, initially, Trump wasn't persuaded that it made sense to go to war with Iran because they have ballistic missiles. But lately, if you listen carefully to what he says, he does want to, get Iran to essentially give away their only defensive capability. So what? Israel can do whatever it wants in the region. And so the Iranians are like, no, our ballistic missiles are off the table. Thank you. We want to focus on the nuclear negotiations. And that's what allegedly took place between Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and the Iranians this past weekend. They didn't reach a deal, but what's amazing to me is that now it's not just about the nuclear weapons or the missiles. There's something else the Israelis want the Iranians to give up. And I'm gonna tell you about that in just a minute.
This will be fun. Let's talk about first dates. We've all been there. You're trying to figure someone out, so you ask the important stuff up front. What are you looking for? What are your deal breakers? You get right to the point to see if they're the right person for you. Well, the same goes if you're hiring. You definitely want to address key questions first to see if someone could be right for your role. That's why you need ZipRecruiter. When you post your job, ZipRecruiter suggests screening questions to help you identify top candidates faster. And today you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/TYT. Their matching technology immediately starts finding qualified people who actually check all your boxes. No wonder ZipRecruiter is the #1 rated hiring site. Ask key questions and hire faster with ZipRecruiter. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/TYT. That's ZipRecruiter.com/TYT. Meet your match on ZipRecruiter.
But before we do, I got to show you this video of former US Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, losing it in her pants over the idea of going to war with Iran. Take a look.
This is a legacy-defining moment for President Trump. Iran has never been weaker than they are right now. The key at the end of the day is no nuclear enrichment, no more ballistic missile or drone activity.
You hear that? Nuclear weapons. Oh, you signed the JCPOA. Israel doesn't want peace. They want to go to war. They want regime change. Move the goalposts. Now it's nuclear weapons and missiles. By the way, Iran has not agreed to do anything that the West wants in regard to their missiles. But as you just heard from Nikki Haley, now drones are also included in this matter. So explain to me, if you can take a step back, whatever biases you might have in relation to this story, put it aside for 1 second and ask yourself, put yourself in the shoes of the Iranians. Would you think that the West is negotiating with you in good faith? Would you trust the West? Would you trust the United States? Because I wouldn't. And throughout everything that has happened, Iran is still willing to come to the table and try to reach a deal. I think any good faith that any country might have toward the US is just being destroyed every single day with these gross games that are being played. So even before meeting with Trump today, the Jerusalem Post reported that Netanyahu met with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, plotting, of course, because they don't want peace, guys. I really do think that so far Trump had been saving time because he had used up so much of our military capabilities in the Caribbean, giving weapons to Ukraine. Obviously, we've given a massive stockpile of weaponry to Israel as well. I mean, are we ready to go to war? I doubt it. So I think that there's a lot of buying time taking place right now as we speak. I think that the war is inevitable. I really do. But I do want to just say one other thing, because look, the Israelis always get their way. They've bought our politicians or blackmailed them. So what happens if we're able to get through that war without too many of our soldiers dying? If we're able to, now we've already done a lot of damage to our debt, so it'll definitely get worse. But what happens after that? Will Israel finally shut the hell up and leave us alone? And the answer to that is no. And I turn to Colonel Douglas Macgregor, who was actually a foreign policy advisor to Trump in his first term. Obviously, he no longer is. But nonetheless, here he is talking about what comes next after Iran during his conversation on Deep Dive with Daniel Davis.
What Americans need to understand, and I think people in the Middle East are beginning to figure out, is this is not the last step in the march to total and complete security, which equates to Israeli Jewish supremacy in the region or Israeli hegemony, however you want to put it. This is not the last step, because once you have successfully destroyed Iran, you will have to turn your attentions to the destruction of Turkey. Now, Turkey, as they call it now, is standing on the sidelines, but they're not stupid. They understand what's really happening. They understand what Israel's goals are, and they've already concluded, I think, that they are inevitably going to come to blows with Israel.
That is true. And I know it's true because of what I read in Israeli publications, because I pay attention to what Israeli politicians say out loud in Hebrew, but it's transcribed and I know what they're saying. They're already fear-mongering about Turkey. And you think Israel is going to go to war with Turkey on its own? I mean, it can't go to war with the Houthis on its own. Israel would cease to exist without the US bankrolling that country and providing arms to that country. So buckle up, America. Unless we defeat this Zionist regime that looks down their noses at us and just uses us as their ATM machines, we're just gonna be in perpetual war on their behalf until there's nothing left in this country. We're already $38 trillion in debt. We can't afford this, we shouldn't do this, but we're gonna do it anyway because our system is corrupt, our politicians are bought, and we are not governed by the people that we elected. We're actually governed by the people who bought them. That's the reality.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.